pleasure to see everybody here this morning. Like I said, we have several out that are elderly, some with respiratory issues, and so they've decided to stay home. For those of you online and don't know what's going on, I went up in the mountains yesterday with my son-in-law. Crystal and Jesse moved here from North Carolina back in March when this all started, and so he's not familiar with the Northwest. He's from Boston, and we were traveling around yesterday, and I said, well, welcome to the Northwest. You never know what you're going to face. Monday, we had 50-mile-an-hour winds, I think gusting to like 60, 70, blowing down trees, knocking down power lines, and of course that started up all the fires. I think it was like 16 fires in our area, and we were lucky because the wind was blowing the other way, but now the wind has changed, and so we are having just smoke, I guess is just the way to put it. Yesterday, traveling around was a little bit thicker up there, and we had like a half a mile visibility. It's burning your eyes, burning your throat, your nose, and so yesterday and today, and somebody said that the weather's saying that winds are gonna change, and we'll have clear days or clearer days tomorrow, so that's good, but that's welcome to the Northwest. That's what it's like up here. You never know what's going to happen from day to day. But it's good having the visitors here this morning. It's great to have Brian back. He's been up in Alaska for the last 6 months, so it's good to have him here. I bought a new remote, a clicker, so I'm hoping I won't have any more issues. We'll see how it goes. If I toss it, it didn't work. But it's good to have everybody here this morning. I'd planned on another lesson to sort of bring our lessons that we've been studying the last month on sin to a close, but I didn't know how many people were going to be here this morning, and so last night I changed it to something different. And so we're going to go through this, and the next week I'll finish up our lessons that we were going through. But this morning we're going to talk about the who am I, the I am, and the I am not. It worked. How do we show our Christianity today? Maybe you wear a cross around your neck to show that you are a Christian and to keep Christ close to you. Maybe you take your Bible with you to work so you can read it. Maybe you listen to Christian music, okay? And other people can hear that and know that you are a Christian. I know our oldest daughter, that's what we listen to. And she was in high school, and one of her friends asked her who her favorite, musician was, and she was, listing off the Christian musicians, and her friends at work or school had no clue what they were, and they made kind of fun of her because she didn't know the newest rock stars of the 90s, and she came home kind of sad about it. And I said, why? I said, the Christian musicians? And she goes, yeah. I said, well, that's great. There's no problem with that. And she kind of, okay, fine. Or maybe you pray at work whenever you have lunch, or you talk to your friends about it. Or maybe they recognize that you're a Christian because of how you act and things you don't say, Or are we afraid to be a Christian? Are we afraid or embarrassed to let our friends and our family know that we are a Christian? Are you like that? And if we're afraid of it, then maybe something's wrong. We're afraid that people are going to get an impression, of what a Christian is when they look at you because you act differently. Maybe we're a hypocrite. I say I'm a Christian, but then I act this way. So maybe we're afraid to let our friends know that we are Christians. Well, I want us to travel back in time this morning. I want us to go back into the Old Testament. If you would, turn to Exodus 3, and we're going to just shortly look at the story here dealing with Moses. And I'm not going to read through it, so mark this, put your little red or black marker there, and come back to it later if you want to. I'm just going to kind of go through this real quick. But Moses is tending the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, when he sees a burning bush. And the fire, he notices, is not destroying the bush. So Moses moves closer to try to figure out why this bush is on fire, but it's not being burned up or being consumed. And God talks to Moses through this burning bush. And again, I'm paraphrasing, so go back and read this and get the full story. But anyway, God tells Moses that he has heard the cry of the children in captivity in Egypt, and that Moses is going to go and lead them out of Egypt to a land that is flowing with milk and honey. Excuse me. And then going to verse 11, but Moses said to God, "Who am I?" You know, Lord, this is a big thing. You want me to go to Egypt and talk to Pharaoh and tell him to let all of his slaves go. You know, that's a big task. He's not going to listen to me. You know, I'm a shepherd. Who am I to go and do this? How many times do we question ourselves when God tells us to go and do something? And he might not come to you and say exactly, well, you need to do this, but you see something around the church building that needs to be done. Or maybe we're doing something and you look at it, you know, we're asking for volunteers, and you're like, well, who am I to be able to do that? You know, do we question ourselves? Do we question our strength? Do we question our Christianity to go and do that? Well, that's what Moses is doing here. Lord, who am I to go and do this? That I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt. So God said, I will certainly be with you. Remember that. God is not going to ask us to go and do something alone. God is always going to be there and to help us and to lead us and to guide us. Okay? I will certainly be with you. And this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on the mountains. Then Moses said to God, indeed, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they shall say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am, has sent me to you. Verse 15, moreover, God said to Moses, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, the Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial to all generations. I am. His name alone is a memorial to all of us today. I am is a memorial to all generations. God has given us a memorial to last forever. And it's just his name, the I am. Flipping over to John 8, 57 through 58. In the verses preceding this, the Jews are again going after Jesus. And they're trying to trip him up, and they're accusing him of being a Samaritan and that he was possessed by a demon. And the Jews talk about their father Abraham. And when we drop down to verses 57 and 58, we read, then the Jews said to Jesus, you are not yet 50 years old, and how have you seen Abraham? And Jesus said to them, most assuredly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. Have you seen your father, our father Abraham? No. Yes, I have seen him. I witnessed him. But I was also at the beginning of time. I am. I have always been here. And I will always be here. I am. Two simple words that are memorial to us all to who God is. I am. John 18, verses 1 through 11. Jesus had spoken these words. he went out with the disciples over the brook Kidron, where there was a garden which he and his disciples entered, and Judas, who betrayed him, also knew this place, for Jesus often met there with his disciples. Then Judas, having received a detachment of troops and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, came there with lanterns, torches, and weapons. Jesus, therefore, knowing all things that would come upon him, went forward and said to them, "Whom are you seeking?" They answered him, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus said to them, "I am he." And Judas, who betrayed him, also stood with them. Now notice what happens when Jesus answers the mob with "I am." They draw back and they fall on the ground. Here they come to capture Jesus and haul him away. But when he tells them who he is, the "I am," they fall in reverence. And we read that here starting in verse 6. Now when Jesus said to them, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. Then he asked them again, "Whom are you seeking?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." Verse 8, Jesus answered, "I have told you that I am he. Therefore, if you seek me, let those go their way. And that the saying might be fulfilled which he spoke, of those whom he gave me, I have lost none." Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. So Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword into its sheath. Shall I not drink the cup which my Father has given me?" And this morning, in Alex's class on Ephesians, he was talking about how everything has been set into place. Jesus knows what is going on, and he knows the scriptures, and he's always quoting the scriptures. And he's doing the same thing here, saying that this has got to happen. This has got to be fulfilled. I've got to do my part. But have you ever noticed how Jesus is always in control of the situation? We have seen this in our studies of the Gospels from time to time, where the rulers try to trick Jesus with questions, but they cannot snare him because Jesus has always been in control. Jesus was in control when the feeding of the 5,000, when they ran out of fish and bread. They didn't have enough. And Jesus says, "Don't worry about it. Break it up and distribute it." And that little bit of food was enough to feed 5,000 and have 12 baskets of leftovers. Jesus was in control. Jesus was in control when the disciples were in the boat in the middle of the sea and the great storm came about. They were all scared, but Jesus was in control. Jesus is always in control of the situation. But then we have Peter, quick to the sword to defend his master, to protect his master. Jesus is ready to die for Jesus. If we go to John 13, verses 36 through 38, Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, where are you going?" Jesus answered him, "Where I am going, you cannot follow me now, but you shall follow me afterward." Peter said to him, "Lord, why can I not follow you now? I will lay down my life for your sake." Jesus answered him, "You will lay down your life for my sake? Most assuredly, I say to you, the rooster shall not crow till you have denied me 3 times. Again, Christ knows Peter's heart. Jesus asked Peter if he would lay down his life for him. Peter wants to defend his Lord. But what will you do when the rubber meets the road? Will Peter spin out in anger and die for Christ, or will he skid to a stop and deny Christ? Christ knows that he's going to skid to a halt. Back to John 18. Peter is ready to fight and die for Jesus without a doubt. Peter is not a coward. Jesus tells Peter to put down his sword. In the other Gospels, we see where Jesus actually puts the ear back on Malchus. Jesus is not a fighter. There is nothing about Jesus that is a fighter. There is not one thread of his being that is a fighter. He could have called 10,000 angels to destroy the world and set him free. Jesus could have pulled another escape act like he did that time the crowd was gathering around him to seize him in John 10, verse 39. But Jesus didn't do any of that. Why? He tells Peter in verse 11, shall I not drink the cup which my Father has given me? Jesus knew that he had to endure all of this, what was about to happen for us, for each and every one of us. In John 18, dropping down to verse 15, and Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. Now that disciple was known to the high priest and went with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter stood at the door outside. Then the other disciple who was known to the high priest went out and spoke to her who kept the door and brought Peter in. Then the servant girl who kept the door said to Peter, you are not also one of this man's disciples, are you? And Peter said, I am not. Here, just hours ago, Peter took his sword out and cut off the ear of a man to defend his Lord and Savior, ready to fight the army that is there. But here, a girl comes up and asks him, he says, are you one of his disciples? Are you with this man Jesus? I am not. I am not. Dropping down to verse 25. Now Simon Peter stood and warmed himself. Therefore they said to him, you are not also one of his disciples, are you? He denied it again and said, I am not. One of the servants of the high priest, a relative of him, whose ear Peter had cut off, said, did I not see you in the garden with Jesus? Peter then again denied, and immediately the rooster crowed. We have Moses as the, who am I? Who am I, Lord, to do this great thing that you want me to? We have God and Jesus, who are the I am. And now here is Peter, who is the I am not. In Mark 14, verse 72, the second time the rooster crowed. Then Peter called to mind the word that Jesus had said to him, before the rooster crows thrice, you will deny me 3 times. And when he thought about it, Peter wept. When Jesus said, you're going to deny me before the rooster crows, Peter says, there's no way, Lord, I will die for you. But when he asked, are you a part of this disciple group with Jesus? I am not. I am not. I'm not associated with him. But then when the rooster crows, Peter remembers. Jesus had told him this is exactly what he was going to do. Again, Jesus knows all. Jesus knows what's going to happen. It was set into place what was going to happen. And so here's Peter that just hours ago would have defended Christ. And now he has denied him. I want to stop here and rewind a few verses, if I may. I read a book several years ago. I don't remember what the name of it was, what the author was, or what the book was even about. But it was a different kind of book. As you read through it, and things got set up and everything, and it got to a point to where something had to happen, the book stopped. And then it asked you how you wanted the book to go from that point, what you thought the book should travel. And you could pick A or B. And if you picked A, you went to this page. If you picked B, you went to this page. And then you read the rest of the story with that storyline. And then it would stop again and ask you, well, A or B, which way do you think that this story should go? Well, I think this person should do this. And so you go to this page and you would read it. And then you'd stop again. And it was kind of interesting how you got to pick to choose how that book would go and how the storyline would follow. And I cheated sometimes and went back and read the other side to see how it would go that way. So I want to play a what if this morning. What if Jesus had been a fighter? What if Jesus had broken his chains and he had grabbed a soldier's sword and he called in a dozen armed angels to clear out the courtyard? I think verse 17 would have read, "Then the servant girl who kept the door said to Peter, 'Are you also one of this man's disciples, are you?' Peter would have seen the commotion over her shoulder and replied, 'Now this is what I'm talking about. Yes, I am one of them,' as he pushed open the door, drawing his own sword, and helped Jesus slay the soldiers and the rulers. But that, of course, was not Jesus. That is not what Jesus is about. What the I am was doing went against what Peter wanted to do. So Peter's response in verse 17 is, 'I am not.' Peter had no problem in fighting for Jesus and dying and cutting off the ear. But Peter did have a problem in not fighting and dying. Jesus has not changed. Jesus is the same man here as he was his whole life. He didn't change who he was because he was afraid of what was going to happen or what he might think that people would think about him. Jesus did change what he had to do because of what he wanted, and that was his Father's will. In Matthew 5, verses 3 through 12, we have the Beatitudes. "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted the prophets which were before you." And that might have been kind of hard to read, and I'm sorry. But this is who the I am is. This is what the I am taught. This is how the I am lived his life all the way to the end. And this is what Peter is having a problem with. Peter is having a problem in dying without a fight. When we read the Gospels, we ask the question over and over again, do you think that the disciples and the apostles got it? Did they truly understand what Jesus was talking about? And we always say no, that they didn't get it. They didn't understand. They didn't understand what Jesus was doing until after his death. And then after his resurrection and his transfiguration, they got it. They understood it then, what was going on. But at this point in time, they still don't have it. Peter is standing around the fire keeping warm. Thoughts of everything that has happened up to this point and everything he has gone through with Jesus flashing through his mind, but he still doesn't get it. Do we get it today? Do we really understand what happened and what Jesus' teachings were? Are we willing to live our life every day under the guidance of these Beatitudes? Are we willing to be that Christian man, woman, father, mother, friend, or neighbor that God has called us to be every minute of every day of our lives, no matter where we are or who we are with? Peter is not a coward. He just doesn't get it yet. How many today would lay down their lives to fight for Jesus? I don't know if you remember Columbine High School on April 20th, 1999. Two senior boys went into their school armed and they killed 12 students, a teacher, and wounded 24 others. I have a book that was written by a girl whose name was Casey, who died that day. He tells the story of the last few minutes of his daughter's life, as was told to him by one of her friends who was in the room with her. And she said that one of the gunmen came up to her and pointed a gun in her face and asked Cassie if she believed in God. And she didn't hesitate. She said, "Yes, I believe in God." And he pulled the trigger. How many of us today, if given that same situation, would say, "Yes, I believe in God," knowing what the outcome could be? Some of you might be saying, "No, I would deny it to live and to be able to move on, because I have a family." Think back to Peter and what he was facing. They had just hauled Jesus off. And they came up to him and said, "Are you one of his disciples? Do you believe in God? Have you been following him?" "Nope, I am not." But Casey, whatever, when having a gun pointed to her face and asked, "Do you believe in God?" she said, "Yes," and was killed. So, what about us today? In Matthew 16, verses 24 through 27, "Then Jesus said to his disciples, 'If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it. And whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what profit is it to a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man will come in the glory of his Father with the angels, and then he will reward each one according to his works. Deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me." So where do you fit into the picture this morning? Are you sitting there wondering, like Moses, "Who am I? Who am I that Jesus should call me? Who am I to do the work of the Lord? There's somebody else here that is more capable of doing it than I am." We always doubt ourselves. Who am I? Should I take the walk that Christ wants me to take? Should I talk to my friends about Christ? Should I spread his news? Should I do the work around the building? Or are we like Peter and responding to God with the word that I am not? I am not a Christian. And you might say that, those three words physically. But when somebody looks at you and how you act and how you talk and how you respond, do they see a Christian? Or do they see somebody in the world? Because when you do not act like a Christian, you're just being another Peter and saying, "I am not one." People should be able to look at you and your words and your comments and how you respond and how you dress and how you treat other people and know that you're different. We've got to take up our cross and follow Jesus. We've got to deny ourselves. We've got to deny the worldly way of acting and treating and being. Our response needs to always be, "I am," as a remembrance of the memorial God set down. I am ready to do whatever it will take to spread the gospel of Jesus. I am ready to go here and do that. I'm ready to lay down my life for Christ. I am ready to be a Christian every single day, no matter what. I am not going to hide the fact that I am a Christian. I am not going to be afraid to show my Christianity to my friends. I am not going to deny Christ ever. I am going to be a worker for the Lord and be strong in Christ in every way. I am. How do you sit this morning? Have you put on Christ? Are you a Christian? Do you always act and talk like a Christian? Or do you have problems with that? Do you need the prayers of your Christian family, your Christian brothers and sisters, to give you the strength to always be a Christian, to always act like a Christian, to always talk and dress like a Christian? If so, we are here to help you, to pray for you, to give you the strength that you need. Or maybe you haven't put Christ on yet, and you realize where you need to be a Christian, where you need to have Christ in your life. The baptistry is ready. We're more than happy to baptize you into Christ so that you can become a Christian. Please let your wishes be known as to